Hi there, and welcome to Teal families, to students, to people at home, to alumni. We are so glad that the Teal Nation is going to participate in a fun, exciting painting with us from the studios of Paint and Unwind in Murrells Inlet today. Don't worry, you don't have to be a painter. You get the materials and we will show you everything you need step by step with special tips and tricks to ensure your success as a painter today. Thanks so much and hope you enjoy creating our beach signs painting. This is your materials explanation video, just so you can get some clarification in case you have questions concerning your materials you're purchasing for this particular project. First of all, the surface. We are using a 16 by 20 primed canvas. You can buy these at Walmart or any craft store. If you have another surface that you will be using, that is okay. A similar size is helpful, but a different size is okay. Also, make sure it is cleaned and primed properly. Secondly, brushes. You're going to need some brushes for our painting today. A good brush to have is a 2-inch chip brush. Looks something like this, like a house painting brush. Anything similar to that in size and a nice soft bristle is going to be just fine. Secondly, a square brush. This one's about a little less than a 1-inch wide square brush, called square because it's square at the end. We're using a wedge brush. A nice chiseled square brush would also work, that's slightly smaller if needed. And also a line brush. Any line or fine tip round type brush will be just fine for this project. All right, now we're going to talk about paints. You're going to want to have a styrofoam plate or a palette is fine if you'd like to have something to mix your paint on. And the colors of paints and types of paints. If you are purchasing your paints on your own, chances are you're going to be at the craft store and you're going to be looking at things a lot like this. These are perfectly adequate for our project, and there's more than enough in these small tubes to do what we are doing today. Others may purchase different types of tubes like these. There's various brands, but they all pretty much do the same thing as long as they are acrylic paint. That's what you need to know. Now let's talk about the colors you need, because invariably people want to know exactly what colors we are using. So I'm going to tell you. Let's start with pink. I'm not going to give you a specific pink. Any pink will work. We are using kind of a neon pink just because we like it. Sometimes I'm going to refer to colors as Crayola crayon colors, like the colors that come in a box of 10. Pretty much everybody knows. You need like a Crayola crayon color yellow. And if you had to name it by an artist name, that would be cadmium yellow. Also Crayola crayon orange. Had to name it, it'd be cadmium orange. And aqua is nice. This one is just aqua green is what it's called. We have a teal color that we mix up here, and that is created by mixing phthalo blue, P-T-H-A-L-O blue, and viridian green, or you can use any dark blue, would be just fine. You're going to need purple. Purple oxide would be a good color. You need quite a bit of white, maybe not this much, a small tube would be adequate, but titanium white will do the trick. And black, Mars black or any other black is just fine, okay? A couple other things you need, some sort of jar or disposable cup to mix your paint brushes to clean them off in. I might have mentioned a paper towel to wipe off your brushes, or an old rag would work fine. You might want a hair dryer around in case you have to speed up drying something for any reason. You can use a pencil, and you may want a Sharpie. We're going to be using some tape, and this is important. You need 2 pieces of tape at least 17 inches long that are about 1 inch wide. They can be blue painter's tape or regular masking tape. Either one is fine. We are also using 5 pieces of 2-inch wide tape that's about 10 inches long. Okay, about 10 inches long. We need 5 pieces of that. It's okay. This is the size that I'm talking about. If you only have this size, that's going to work just fine too. And again, blue tape or painter's tape will both work just fine. Only other things you need is a tarp or newspaper to protect your floor and work area, and some old clothes in case you get paint on you. And that's pretty much all you need for our project today. Let's begin creating our beautiful beach signs painting. The first thing we're going to be doing is taping off our beach signs. And by the way, you can write whatever you want to on these beach signs. You can be creative and put what you want on them. But that comes last, so you have a little while to think about it. You're going to be using one of your longer pieces of tape that we have, one of the long, skinny 1-inch ones. And we want to put this so we have enough room to put a sign. You don't want it all the way at the top quite, but somewhere not quite towards the top. And you're going to be putting signs on there, and we don't want to cover the sunset. So that's why we put it about here. It's about 1/3 over on your picture. Then you have your wider pieces of tape. These are going to be your beach signs. You can place these anywhere you want, but let me caution you not to just do a perfect zigzag because that looks kind of contrived. You can make them shorter if you feel like one's too long. Okay, you can and you can even like get real fancy with it and go ahead and cut an arrow on it before you use it, since you're at home and you have time if you want to do that. All right, so you're just going to start placing these on here. It's okay if they overlap slightly. You don't want them to overlap a lot because then you won't be able to read your words. And just have them at slightly different angles all the way down your painting. You don't want to get all the way to the bottom just because we want it to look like, you know, there's a stick on which all the signs are. Not like it just keeps going and going with signs. Okay, so this is what you should have. You should have a center line, and you should have 5 signs going across. You could have less or you could have more. I don't recommend more than 6 because it starts to get really full. And I don't recommend less than 3 usually because 3 just looks really good. So between 3 and 6 is a good number. So go ahead and pause if you need more time to complete this step. If not, just make sure all of your tape is really nicely secured, and we're going to continue. All right, so the first brush we're going to be using today is our chip brush. Our chip brush looks like a house painting brush. It's about 2 inches wide. Anything similar will work just fine. We're going to be starting with our sky, which is great news because skies are easy. As long as you do long strokes back and forth and blend your colors, pretty much anything you do is going to look like a sky. So let's just get started. We're going to put white all over our brush, and then we're just going to put a corner in our pink, whatever pink you have that you like. The pink is going to be on the bottom side of my brush, and I'm going to come about 2/3 up my canvas and start putting this on. Long strokes back and forth. As you can see, I'm just covering my tape. My tape is not important, but I want to make sure I get all the way up to it, and the easiest way to do that is just go ahead and cover it and pretend like it's not there. Long strokes back and forth. If you love pink, you may want to put more pink than I did on your painting. That is fine. This is your creation, and you can paint it however you want to paint it. If you want to do the whole thing pink, that is okay. I'm going to show you how to do it like the original, but we love it when people do their own individual thing, so please feel free to express yourself accordingly. Something I'm doing presently that you need to know is I'm wrapping my edges. This means I take my color as I go. Whenever I hit a side or a top or a bottom of the canvas, I go ahead and put that color there. You may need to pause the video at this time to catch up to this step, and once you have, resume the video. I will be giving you opportunities to pause throughout this experience. All right, so once you finish that pink step, we're going to use the same brush. We're not going to wash it. We are going to put it back in the pink, and this time we're going to pick up some orange. Okay, whatever orange you have, put some orange on there on the bottom corner. Hold it with the orange on the bottom again, and swipe back and forth. You're going to want to take this color, and don't keep them separate. You want to keep them separate because you're thinking about doing rainbows when you were little, but what we want to do is blend them. So you take that orange and you let it kind of softly come down into the pink, okay? So now my pink isn't just pink, it's pink with orange. And you may need to pause until you've done this step. Once you have added the orange, you can grab white with your brush and put a corner in both the orange and yellow. With this, we're going to come right to the top of the orange. We're going to put this on very nicely. I'm not going quite to the top yet. Get a very pretty yellow orange there and wrap my sides. And then lastly, here's where you can pause if you need to catch up. Lastly, we can use white and just yellow and put that at the very top of your canvas. If you love the yellow, use lots of it, won't hurt a thing. And make sure you get the top of your canvas. I am leaning my canvas down to make sure I can paint the top. You could also turn it on its side or however you need to do to complete the top of your canvas. Anytime you need to reload, do it the same way. Brush full of white, a little bit of yellow. You can look at your sky and decide if you like it. If you need to tweak something, you can. I like mine, so I'm going to continue. You may pause the video if you need to catch up at this point. All right, so we are changing colors, therefore we need to wash our brush. We're going to take our jar or cup of water and just really squish that brush around in there really well. Really get that paint out. We're going to squeegee the paint out. And I also like to advise people to hold their brush like this, because sometimes this metal part likes to hold a bunch of water and dump it out on you later, which is not a nice surprise. So kind of eliminate that by doing that. And once you squeegeed it out and tipped it over, you can dry it on your paper towel. We're going to be using like a beach buff, sandy color, whatever you want to call it. A light brown made by mixing white and brown would work just fine. We're using kind of a skin tone and a little white also on our big brush. We're going to be creating a slow slope. So if this slope were a slide, it'd be a very boring slide because somebody would get on it and it would take them forever to get to the end. Don't give me a fun slide. I like fun slides, but not for this. Give me a very boring slide, like for the retirement home. Oh, okay. And you're gonna fill in with this color almost to the bottom, not quite to the bottom. You can put little white streaks in there if you'd like, or brown streaks if you'd like, if you want a little more texture to your sand. But you're gonna come almost all the way to the bottom, and don't forget to wrap your sides. You may pause here if you need to catch up to this step. Once you have completed the sand color, we're still going to use the same brush. We're still going to use some sand color, but we're going to add some purple. Some of you are thinking, what on earth, purple? Well, we'll see. We're going to slide this on here. It's going to start mixing with those other colors, and it's going to create a shadow effect. Now, shadows can be gray or brown, which is fine, but we are the music makers and we are the dreamers of the dream, and we decided we wanted our shadows to be purple. If you don't like purple, then you can make your own ideas, and you could use a little gray or brown to create the same idea. But whatever you choose, you are going to want to paint your bottom edge. We do this by picking up our canvas or turning it on its side on the easel, and just make sure you get that entire bottom covered, because this is going to show up when it's up on your living room wall. And I'm coming to check tomorrow. All right, so you can add as much or as little purple as you like. And it can be streaky too. Sand can be streaky. I like it when things look a little less homogeneous, so that's good. Okay, so we have done our sky, we have done our sand. We want to take this brush and put it in the water. I do not think we will be using it again. And we're going to pick up our other piece of long, skinny tape. Now, before we proceed to the next step, you need to make sure that your horizon is dry. Mine is, but just in case yours isn't, just check it and be sure. If it's not dry, then use a hair dryer and just gently, you don't have to blow the whole canvas, but gently blow the area that we're going to be taping, and then you'll be ready to proceed. So do that if you need to now. We're going to take our long piece of tape, we're going to put it all the way across our canvas, and we're going to make sure that there's at least a little pink showing underneath all the way across. The reason for that is that we don't want to have white spots in our sky where our tape was covering a white spot. So as long as we have pink all the way underneath, we're going to be sure that that's not going to happen. All right, so now we're going to pick up a new brush. We put that other brush in the water. We're picking up our second largest brush, which is our 1-inch square brush or similar brush. We're going to pick up white and just a tiny bit of yellow. How much yellow? Okay, I hope you said it. All right, we're going to take this and we're going to pretend our sun is already here because we're going to do the reflection. And so all we're going to do is we're going to take this color and we're just going to swipe it underneath, back and forth. I'm holding my brush side to side, not up and down. So my brush is like this, not like this. Okay, side to side. Whole lot of white, just a little bit of yellow. And just swipe back and forth. We're going to want to try to kind of stay straight here. We're going to try to go straight down. A lot of people tend to meander. Just make sure, do your best to go straight down, or at least have what should be straight down covered, even if you end up going a little to one side or the other. We can cover that up later. And keep reloading your brush as needed. Don't paint over your sand. Stop before you get to your sand. If you love yellow, you want it to be super bright yellow, you can use more yellow, but a little less might be a little more realistic. And I want you to pay attention right here underneath the tape. If you have pink showing where that yellow is, really put that paint on thickly. We are trying to cover that. We don't want it to show. So put it on like you're icing a cake. Maybe you've never iced a cake. Go ice a cake and then come back and do this. Okay. You may pause and catch up if you need to on this step. Next step, same brush. We're going to wash the brush. We already know how to do that, and dry it. If you have a teal color, dark teal, we're going to start with that. If you don't have dark teal, any dark blue color would be just fine. And what we're going to do is we're going to hold our brush the same way as we did for our sunset. We're going to hold it like this. And we're going to wiggle, 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 just like this, right next to our sunset. And we're going to do that on both sides of the reflection. Holding your brush side to side. Don't be afraid to get into the yellow just a little bit. All right, so now we have our first color. We need to go ahead and fill in to the sides with this color. And make sure you get your left side too, even though the signs are covering most of this area. Make sure you get everything that's showing. I'm just going to go ahead and cover this because that'll be less confusing. All right, so pretend the signs aren't there and just get that covered. Okay, so you may pause if you need to catch up at this point. After that, you're going to use the same brush and you're going to grab some aqua. If you don't have aqua, just a lighter blue would work fine. We're going to come right up under the last color we did. We're going to kind of blend up into it a little bit and then come down, just like we did the first color, wiggling all the way. Grab some more paint, get right up under that color on the left side, wiggle up into that color, and then wiggle down. At least a couple inches, okay? You don't have to go all the way down, just a couple inches. Once you get your successful wiggle on the sides of your reflection, again, you can take that color and just continue it around the canvas. Okay. Whenever you get up to your last color, blend into it a little bit. Blend into it. Don't let it just stop and start. blend into it first, and then continue down to where the paint needs to stop. You may pause now if you need to catch up on this step. Once you finish the aqua step, the next step is very similar. This time we're going to use white and a little aqua on our brush. White and a little aqua. And same story, come right beside your sunset reflection, wiggle, 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 wiggle up into the last one. Same thing on the other side. Start right under the aqua, wiggle up into it, and wiggle down. Okay, once you get your wiggles done, wrap your sides. Let me look and see. Yeah, I wrap my side pretty well. Same thing as you go across, blend into the last color, don't forget. This is white and aqua, or any light blue you might be using. Wrap your sides. As long as your strokes are back and forth, even if you can see your brush strokes or if you haven't blended well, it is okay because it ends up looking like water. Water, especially at the beach, is very turbulent and there's streaks. So we get to use our brush to create that effect. Lastly, and by the way, pause if you need to catch up to this point. Lastly, we're going to pick up just white on our brush. We're going to do the last time, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to come right up under, and you'll see that very quickly the aqua still on your brush is going to blend and make an even lighter aqua. It won't be just white. And we're going to finish up our painting, the water part of our painting, with this particular color. Make sure you get any remnant that's showing on the left side, and wrap your edges. I want to encourage you, if something here went amiss and you don't like it, let your painting dry or hair dry it. The part that's bothering you, you can cover with white, dry it again, and then try it again. Nothing is permanent with paint. If I were here to help you, I'd fix it up with you, but you're on your own, so that's how you do it. If you want to add just a little bit of this super light blue, very gingerly, to your reflection, you may do that. Don't put a ton in there, you probably won't like it, but just a little bit is very nice. And then you may put this brush in the water. We're going to pick up our wedge brush. Our wedge brush is the medium-sized brush that's angled, or it can be a slightly smaller square brush, would work fine also. We're going to pick up just plain white with this brush, plain old white. And we're going to be creating the little ridge of the crashing wave up alongside the beach. We're going to hold this brush side to side, not up and down, but side to side, so it's not super thick. We're going to do a fun technique called pouncing. And pouncing is when you take the end of your brush and you go boing, boing, boing instead of swish, swish, swish like we usually do. And saying boing, boing, boing is extremely helpful in getting this technique right. So I want to hear you all from home. And you can go like this. Boing, 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 boing. Just kind of tap the end of that brush when you need more paint. Get it on your brush. Tap it all the way across. We have a happy little wave now. Come on the other side anywhere that your beach is showing, if you have any, and bounce your way around your edges. Okay, so now we have a nice little crashing wave on the beach. If you had some funky lines between your water and your sand, that should have taken good care of them, which is great. You can put that brush in the water and catch up now if you need to pause and catch up on that step. The next brush we will be using is our line brush. It's our smallest brush used to make lines. Any small round brush will work just fine. You're also going to pick up white. We're going to create a few waves out in the water. Everybody thinks of waves as being wavy, but when they're coming towards you at the beach, they look largely flat or straight, and they are perpendicular to the beach. So we're going to start with a line, just a line. That's the same angle as our beach. And then you can kind of do your little thing you were doing with the pouncing. We can come on back and do another one like this. Just remember that they need to be perpendicular to the beach. And you don't need 25 of them because all you need is a few to give the idea of some waves. And do let some come around the edges. If you have any room over here, you can do that. There's usually no waves way out in the ocean just because it has to be a pretty windy day for that. So usually they're just breaking pretty close to the shoreline. So as many as you want. And it's okay for them to overlap your sun reflection also, just so you know. So there's our waves. And again, if you did it and you hate it and you want to start over, just let it dry and do something else for a little while before you attack that again. But chances are they look pretty good if you've been following directions. All right, we get to do something fun now. We get to take off our tape. Yay! All right, scream really loud and scare everybody. No, I'm just kidding. Take off your tape. First, your horizon line. Oh, you should have a beautiful, perfectly straight horizon line thanks to our tape. We can also totally take off our sign tape. It's good to start with the center stick and pull top to bottom. That way you just kind of get everything in one nice swoop. Check it out. Whoop, whoop. All right, so let's see, what do we want to do next? After you get your tape off, which should be pretty easy, you're going to use a pencil. I want to warn you, I'm going to draw a little bit darkly so you can see what I'm doing. But I want you to draw lightly, 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 okay? Lightly. All right. So very lightly, you can create an arch that is going to be your sunshine. Now, if you do it darkly, it's difficult to cover those pencil lines and you'll be sad. So don't be sad. Do it lightly, even though I did it dark, okay? If you have trouble doing a nice little arch, maybe find yourself a cup or something that's about the size of this and just trace it, okay? Pause if you need to catch up on that part. You're going to clean off and dry your wedge brush. This is your little angled medium-sized brush. And you can paint your sun any combination of orange, yellow, and white that you like. So I'm not going to tell you exactly how to do it. I'm going to do mine kind of a light orange and then kind of go around it with a dark orange. Just fill it in carefully. I filled mine in with a light orange. Now I'm going to grab my line brush and use just some dark orange and kind of give it a little more character here. Unfortunately, when the sun is hitting the water, you're looking at it through a lot of atmosphere. So the sun can look a lot of different ways right there when it hits the water. So as long as it's kind of round, the rest isn't all that important. All right, so pretty much anything you do, as long as it stands out from the background and you like it, then we're good to go. You may pause now if you need time to catch up and have fun creating the sun of your dreams. Okay. All right, so we've got our sun, we've got our whole background done. It's time to start working on our foreground. I'm going to set my painting on the edge of my easel if you happen to be using an easel at home, because we're going to work on our center stick first and I don't want to run into my easel when I get to the bottom of my stick. I'm going to use my wedge brush again. Same brush we used for the sun, just wash it off and dry it. We need to create a wood color. You could make these something other than wood if you wanted to. You could make them colors, you could do anything with them, but we're going to do them like they're old, kind of like driftwood today. So the way we're going to do this, we're going to take some brown and mix it with our sand color so that we get a light brown that is darker than our sand. This is pretty good. And firstly, we're just going to go top to bottom, use a lot of paint, and stay in the lines. And you don't have to get all the way to the edges right now. I want you to get just basically the main body of your stick real quick. And if you're an overachiever, wrap that sticker on the bottom edge. All right, so again, it doesn't have to be really perfect on the edges, and I'm going to show you why. All right, we're going to pick up, actually we're going to keep using this line brush, wedge brush. We are going to use plain old chocolate brown. I want you to make sure that your wedge brush is squished in a nice chisel. You don't want it all fluffed up like a troll doll's head for this step. Make sure you kind of squeeze it out and it's nice and thin. You're going to pick up some plain old brown, and you're going to carefully paint the left side. Now this is where you are careful, but really the only place that much makes a difference is this very bottom edge. So if you hold your brush up and down, not side to side, but up and down, makes a pretty nice thin line. Resist the urge to sketch. People like to sketch like they do with a pencil, and then they get a fuzzy line because it doesn't work that way with a paintbrush. Don't be afraid. Put your paintbrush down, move it as slowly as you want to, and don't pick it up until you get to where you want to go. If you run out of paint, you have to pick it up, but half the time you don't. Now, the rest of these are just little short sections because the only part of the stick that shows are the parts between the signs. So it's very low stress to just come down here and just put a little shadow anywhere you know it's going to show on the side of that sign. Plain old brown. If it blends a little with your wood color, that's okay, as long as it looks a little darker so we can tell it is in shadow. All right, now pause the video to catch up on that step. Next, we're going to highlight the right side of the stick. We're going to wash off the same brush, our wedge brush, and again, make sure it's nice and chiselly. If for some reason you have a super fat chip brush or it's just not cooperating, or wedge brush, you can switch to your line brush for this step. It will also work. We're going to create a light yellow by mixing white and yellow. White and yellow. Okay, get a good little amount of it. Load your brush in a way that keeps your brush nice and chiselly. And again, only part that really matters is this very bottom part. We're going to highlight the right side of the stick because the sun is coming from the right side. So the right side is the part that gets highlighted. And again, anywhere the stick is showing in between or on top of all of your signs, go ahead and get that highlighted. And you may pause to catch up on this step. All right, once you've gotten your shadows and your highlights done on the stick, it's time to work on our signs. We're going to use more of the same color combination, which was for us our sand color with a little brown in it. Any shade of brown that's a little darker than your sand is going to work just fine. And what we're going to do, one thing you have to think about a little bit, if you didn't do it when you were taping, is that usually we want these signs to point in a direction. So you may want to use your pencil and decide which way your signs are pointing, and go ahead and put like a little greater than, less than pointy on the ends of your signs with a pencil, so that you don't have to think about it so much when it's time to paint them, because we don't want to think when we're painting. If we can avoid it, we will. All right, so take a minute and design your points. They can go in whatever direction makes good sense to you. And we're going to go ahead and use our mixture with our wedge brush to paint these. You're going to go right across your stick. Don't worry about your stick. Go right across it. Use enough paint that I can't see that stick showing through. I don't want to see that stick showing through. I want it to disappear. So we're going to go over it, and we're going to use enough paint that you cannot see it. Also, Do not stress about being perfect on your edges. Just like the stick, we're going to come back and highlight and low light. And at that time, we'll stress. It's not time to stress yet. All right. Remember to use enough paint. You can always pause, so don't hurry yourself. Get enough paint on your brush to do the job. Lots of people try to paint with not enough paint. It's the biggest mistake I see with new painters. If you run out of paint, take the time to blend some more paint. At some point, you'll have to decide which signs are on top. If you have overlapping signs, you don't have to decide just yet, but you might want to start thinking about it. And you can also start thinking about what you want to put on your signs. The signs on our example help us think about great things about the CCU campus, including the stadium and Turtle Pond and park and places like that. You may want to personalize this. If you decide to give this as a gift, you might want to give it to someone as places they'd like to go, or places they've been, places where they have grandkids, places you've lived. Had a little boy come in once and put names of dinosaurs. Whatever you like, it's your painting. So think about that a little bit as you're swiping away. You may pause to catch up to the end of this step. Once you've painted all your signs a solid color, you may want to give them a little character, like they're driftwood. Hopefully your paint is still a little bit wet. You can still use your wedge brush and maybe just some brown and just kind of drag it through a little bit like this. Make it look like it has ridges like driftwood. If you do this step, be careful to make sure you get pretty darn close to your edges. If you don't and you stop before your edges, it looks a little contrived. So we want to avoid that. We want this to look natural, and just we automatically look at it and say, oh, that's old wood. Not somebody who was trying to make it look like old wood. All right, and they don't all have to be the same. Some are a little darker, some are a little lighter. It's okay. That's fun. All right, so have fun adding some dark shadows to this. Once you've finished adding your shadows, you're ready for the next step. Pause if you're not finished with your shadows yet. All right, once you finish your shadows, you can also add some little highlights. Beech wood gets a lot of weathering, so it tends to bleach out the wood. So we're going to use a little white. We don't have to wash our brush. And we can highlight also on this weathered beech wood. So you can add some streaks of white to it. If you get good at this, you can refinish furniture this way. You'd want to use an old ratty chip brush and learn how to do wood graining, which is fun and a great way to add a new look to things. Again, be sure you don't leave out the edges. Get real close. Remember, we're going to be highlighting and low lighting, so if you go a little outside the lines, it's not going to be the end of the world. We can rein it in with our outlines. So something like this is about what we want. You may pause the video if you need to finish this step. Okay, once you finish highlighting and low lighting your signs, we're going to do the shadows on the underside of them. Again, using the wedge brush or line brush if you prefer, and plain old brown. We are going to be shadowing the left and bottom side of each sign. And you have to decide which signs are in front if they overlap. I'm deciding this sign is in front, and you can kind of watch me when I get there and see how that affects the way I shadow. So I'm just going to pull my brush along the underside. The back side can be kind of like broken off looking, that's fine, or you can make it nice and straight if you want. Here's where I'm going to be doing two overlapping signs. I have decided that this sign is in the front. Therefore, I don't keep going when I hit this sign because it's in the front. It's covering the bottom part of that sign. And I can make my little point over here. Don't forget to create your points. Here's another one that goes behind the one below it. Don't highlight the right side, that's going to get highlighted. Just the left side and the bottom edge. Take your time with this. This is a final line, so we want it to look good. You don't have to keep up with me. You can stop the video. You should. I would. Just take your time and do a nice job. Okay, at this time you may stop the video and catch up with your shadows on the left and bottom side of each sign. After this step, you are going to wash and dry your wedge or line brush again. We are again going to use a light yellow. So we're going to again use a mixture of white and just a little bit of yellow. A little bit. Keep your brush nice and chiselly. So this time, we're doing the top and right side of each sign. Top and right side. Same rules apply for when things overlap. This sign is in front of it, so I'm just going to go right across there, right across the first sign. Highlight that side. Highlight your point. Again, this one goes in front, so it goes right across. This one goes right across. And we're going to highlight the very front point. So by the time you finish this step, you should have either a highlight or a shadow all the way around each of your signs. Look carefully and make sure you haven't missed a small section or that you don't have something that looks out of place because you haven't overlapped correctly before you continue. Okay, we are almost finished. You're going to use your pencil to write your words. I suggest perhaps writing them out on paper first to make sure that they're going to be spaced well for your final design. And then you can go ahead and write them on your sign. It's okay if your sign is still wet. It won't hurt anything. You're just drawing in wet paint, which is cool. I want to encourage you that when you do a letter, if it has a hole in it, like the letter E, O, or A, keep those letters kind of big in the holes, like the hole of the E. And also, don't put your letters too close together because when you paint them, they're going to get slightly larger and it'll close up those holes or make your letters squish together. So do your best to keep your holes big and keep your spacing as much as you can between letters. sometimes one of your signs is going to overlap a word somewhat. As long as you can tell what the word is going to be anyway, then that's okay. Like for example here, I did Spadoni Park, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Part of park is covered, but you guys know when you see Spadoni Pa, you know what the rest is. So it's okay. Keep that in mind in your design. Okay, so once you have correctly written out all your words and you're happy with the way they look, we're going to use our line brush again. We're going to mix brown and black together, mostly black, just a little bit of brown. What we really want is a really dark brown, not just black. So brown with a little bit of black. And you can go ahead and write your words. Now if your paint is still wet, it's going to blend a little bit with the paint you're using. If you like the way it looks, keep on trucking because that's kind of cool. If you decide you're not into that, you can wait for your paint to dry, or you can hair dry it before you continue. You may want to put a little water in with your paint, especially if you've taken quite a while on this project. It might be kind of drying up, just to keep it kind of flowing. You don't want it runny, but it is nice for it to be a little slipperier and not all chunky. Okay. Again, take your time and do a nice job. One other suggestion, if you just try this and you're just horrible at painting words with a paintbrush, you can always just paint over what you tried with the paintbrush. Let it dry, paint over it, you know how to do it. And you can always use a Sharpie. Now, Sharpies are not great for paintings over like 100 years or something. It might somewhat disintegrate your painting. So if you feel like this is a family heirloom, you may not want to do that. But if it's just for fun, not worried about it, a Sharpie can be a good option. This is going to take you a little while. That's okay. Good art takes a little while. And I hope you're happy with what you've worked on today. Whenever we are open, we do have an open door policy at Paint and Unwind. If you do a painting with us in class or using a paint kit remotely on your own, and you feel like it needs a little tweaking, just check with us and make sure that we are open that night. And you're welcome to come in, use our materials, get some advice and some assistance on tweaking it to make it the way you visioned it. You may pause at this point if you need more time to paint your words, and I'll show you what's next. Once you're finished painting your words, you already have your line brush out and you have a brownish gray color. I want you to dip your brush in the water that you have. It doesn't matter how dirty it is. Just take a tiny bit of your dark brown color and create what's called a wash. A wash is mostly water with just a little bit of paint. This is to create a shadow underneath your crashing wave. It just makes it kind of stand out a little more. Kind of finger painted to help it kind of soften a little bit there. You need just a little bit of paint for that. And it just kind of makes that wave just pop right off the sand. And our very, very, very last step, unless I'm, well, except for signing, unless I'm not remembering something, is to add your birds if you want them. Now, the birds are small. I would do them with a pencil first. Think little bumps, okay? Big bumps look weird, and you don't need to do a V. If you can zoom in on the birds and see, they are just little small bumps, kind of like a lowercase m, but not so bumpy. And I would recommend probably using a Sharpie for this. I'm going to use paint. I'll use some of the shadow color or the words color that we were using. But feel free to use a Sharpie for those. Just make sure you do them in pencil first, because there's no going back once you do Sharpie. It's very difficult to cover with paint, actually. You may pause until you finish your birds. And last but not least, it's very important that you sign your artwork. Most people use their last name or their initials because your whole name can get very large on a small canvas. Traditional place to sign is the bottom right, though you can sign wherever you like. You may use a Sharpie. I am going to use paint, but you can use whatever you want. You can even put the date if you'd like. Okay. I hope you've enjoyed creating this particular painting. It's very personalizable. You can make it as a gift as many times as you want and customize it for different people. You can change the color of your sky, your water. You can even take your finger and write something in the sand. But whatever you do with it, we hope that you enjoy it and that you come see us in Murrells Inlet at Paint and Unwind. Thank you.